Parker, Parker, come here, buddy. This is Parker, Duke. Come here, Duke. He's like, I don't want to get on camera. This is Duke. I promise there's a Duke right there. This is their roadmap to success. So these are dogs that are very anxious and insecure, especially about people coming to the house. And so we did a very measured approach. When I first come in, if the camera wobbles, that's because it's Parker checking it out. But basically, a lot of times when dogs are reactive, a lot of times overexcitement can be the tipping point. There's something called trigger stacking that we have in dogs. Trigger stacking is the same thing we have as like we're having a bad day. We wake up late for work, and then so we're rushing. We get out and we go to take a shower, and for some reason the hot water heater's on the fritz, so we have to take a cold shower. We got to our car, and our car's got a flat tire. And we get that fixed, and then we're driving to work as fast as we can. We get a ticket. And we get in there, the boss chews us out. And you finally sit down at your desk, and one of your coworkers comes up and is just like, nice hair, and you like explode at them. And normally you would just joke around with them, but you are in a bad mood because you had several things happen. Trigger stacking for dogs can be when somebody comes over, at the same time somebody comes over, we have the cleaning people downstairs, I'm agitated that they're here. They're also vacuuming, and that sound makes me stressed out. Vacuum cleaners usually stress out dogs because it releases all the smells of the whole house all at once, and it kind of makes them nose blind. And then maybe outside there's some construction going on. And then somebody comes in, now I'm at the tipping point, that becomes the straw that breaks the camel's back. So whenever I have dogs with a behavior problem, what I want to do is try to remove all the different elements and create the easiest possible scenario for the dog to go through that activity. And sometimes I actually have to break the activity down in individual steps and help the dog practice one step, the first step, over and over without, and again, in a classroom environment, so it's not real world. And we help the dog practice that first step over and over until the dog gains confidence in doing that first step and feels comfortable doing that first step. And when it's good with it, then we go to the second step and we teach each individual step in the easiest setting possible. Then eventually we bring all the steps together, again in the easiest capacity possible. Then we start adding in real world elements and we work our way back to a real world situation. And then we've taught the dogs how to behave. They are confident because they know what we expect out of them, and they've practiced it before. And these dogs, I don't think are aggressive dogs at all. I think they are very nervous and anxious, and they have a lot of cortisol in their blood. They think that they're in charge of their humans, and we'll talk about why in a second. And when people come over, they think that my humans are going to get taken advantage of by these people, so we have to let these people know, look, there are two dogs that are in charge around here, and we got our eyes on you. Now, one of the questions I ask most of my clients, I start out by asking, how can I help you? I was able to skip that one this session. And the second question is, how much exercise do the dogs get? These dogs both enjoy walks, but they haven't been getting a lot of exercise. One of the dogs has cancer, unfortunately. And but the more that we exercise them, we can help reduce their weight. We provide a lot of stimulation on walks. It helps clears their environment. The open air helps them, makes it easier for them to meet things. And just like little kids, if they don't get enough energy spent, they can get into trouble. That's why we have recess at school for kids. So that's one of the first issues, and I suggest the dogs don't need marathon walks because they're elderly, but maybe just one walk around the block for each dog once or twice a day just helps them change their environment, get them kind of to see other things. That can be stimulating for them and enriching for them. It also helps give the human the ability to kind of be the leader and demonstrate being a leader. As I talked about in the video above, the importance of rules and structure, a lot of us think of removing rules as being nice, but it actually can confuse the dogs. Now, the other question I asked is what rules the dogs have, and the guardians here are pretty quick. Most guardians say not a lot, and then I probe, and then it turns out there's none. Here, buddy. Come. Whenever you give a treat, always try to say the word after the dog licks the treat off. If you notice, I'm leaving my hand here. He came back and licked it once, now here twice, and now this is the third time, and now he's licking me a little bit. So I'm giving an opportunity to engage with me, and movement can be scary or dogs that have a lot of cortisol in their blood, that movement can trigger a response. So just by holding the treat in my hand there steady, he was able to come in and get a little bit more interaction. I've been here for 3 hours. I have not petted either dog. Most of us try to pet a dog to show you that I'm a good person. The dog's like, I think you're creepy. You touching me is the last thing that's going to make me think you're less creepy. Show me you're not creepy through your actions. Allow me to be next to you without anything bad happening and without you trying to touch me. And that's what I did. And as you can see, now the dogs are comfortable. When I first came in, they were barking and it wouldn't have been a good experience if I just walked in the door. In order to flip the leader-follower dynamic, flipping the leader-follower dynamic will help these dogs kind of go off duty. I think that they think when they're around their humans, they're in charge, and the humans are going to get taken advantage of, so they have to really let these people know that they're unwanted. And so they bark the whole time. Unless, after a while they get comfortable and they sit down, the human stands up unexpectedly, they bark and lunge at him again, because I didn't give you permission to do that. All of these things come from the dog's perception that they think that they are in charge. So one of the ways I flip the leader-follower dynamic is by incorporating rules and structure and showing the guardians how to enforce those rules consistently. A lot of us like to think of it, breaking the rules, like I mentioned, as being a good, positive thing, but it actually is confusing. And I'll let you watch the video above this for the explanation why, so I don't make this a really long video. But the more that we enforce rules consistently, the more the dogs see us acting like leaders, the less they have to do it, and then they can relax. We don't have as much cortisol in their blood, hopefully no cortisol in their blood. And the cortisol makes you jumpy. This is why veterans have PTSD. They're in a dangerous environment for too long, and your body is not meant to be in that heightened sense of awareness that happens when you have cortisol and adrenaline in your blood. So some of the rules, I'm not going to go over the rules because they're all based above, but make sure you're consistently enforcing those for at least 1 month. I'm talking to the guardians. And then after that, it might be 2 months, 3 months, because these dogs have kind of some severe anxiety. It might be a couple months before we can actually start allowing them to access to different things. Remember, these are privileges, not rights. So I'm going to reward the dog for getting on the couch in a good way, as a reward for being good behavior, not to try to call it on the couch because it's freaking out. Now I'm rewarding the bad behavior. I also, a couple of things I went through is positive reinforcement is what I'm all about. But a lot of us pet our dogs at the wrong times, and we can actually reinforce bad behavior or bad states of mind by petting the wrong time. So because anything your dog is doing when you pet it is what you're reinforcing. If you pet a nervous dog, you will make it more nervous. And we come home and the dog's excited to see us, and we pet them, they're going to be more excited each time they see us. Now, even though that's a positive attribute, we don't think the most clearly when we're in an unbalanced state of mind. If I have an important decision, I want to make that decision when I'm calm, balanced, and thinking clearly. So for the dogs, if we help them practice getting excited when we come home, then anytime anybody comes in, that's an excitable time. And I'm now out of balance, and I'm not going to be thinking most clearly, and that's when I'm going to be more prone to making mistakes. So when the guardians come home, I would like them to ignore the dogs completely. Even looking at the dog is validating. And most people don't realize that for dogs, a lot of times we train dogs to misbehave. Because for us, attention itself, or for dogs, attention itself is validating. Well, if I jump up on the humans, they correct me. If I steal the remote control, they correct me. If I bark, they correct me. If I lunge at the door, they correct me. And we look at the correction as a negative. They look at, well, if you're giving me your attention, you're not giving it to the guest, so it's validating for me. So when you come home, ignore them like they're not even there. I practice something I call light switch on, light switch off. Light switch on is engaging with the dog. Light switch off is disengaging with the dog. The engagement and disengagement is important, but the timing of your engagement or disengagement is the most important. So if I come home and I just ignore the dogs and they're all excited and they kind of start slowing, getting calmer and calmer when they seem to be calm, and I reach to pet Duke and Duke starts wiggling, I pull my arm back. I might only reach towards him 6 inches before he starts wiggling, I pull my arm back. I'm saying through my actions of turning the light switch off that being overexcited causes me to move away and stop engaging with you. And if as soon as he settles down again, I start re-engaging, after a while, dog's like, well, I want your attention. And it seems like every time I'm calm and relaxed, you're engaging with me. Every time I get excited, you stop engaging. That will help them practice, even though it's not directly related to their behavior at the door, it's helping them practice a behavior that will be applicable at the door. So now, and it happens at the same time when the humans come through, even though it's a different door. So when you come home, just ignore the dogs, wait for them to calm. When they're calm, start reaching for them. When they get excited, reach back. It'll be a lot of back and forth, and eventually the dogs will stay calm and you can pet them calmly. Now you can also practice something called, it's the fourth quadrant of operant conditioning. It's called negative punishment. You would think any punishment is negative. Negative in this case means to deduct something from the equation. So if you come in through the garage door, the dogs are all excited, and as soon as you come in the door, they start jumping around, you exit the door and close the door behind you. Well, shoot, when he came in, I was all excited to see him, and that caused him to leave. So we're deducting ourselves from the equation. And then wait and you'll hear and some whining and whimpering, and wait a little bit, and then try to come back in. If they do the same engagement, you can step back out. These are two different approaches that you can use. I'm going to talk about an approach that the visitors can use in a second. But the guardians that live here, if they can start practicing that can help the dogs practice in the easiest setting possible, like I talked about earlier, the behavior we want them to have. Okay, petting with a purpose is petting the dogs for desired actions and behaviors. Both of these dogs nudge or paw at their guardians when they want attention. If the dog has no rules, it sees you as a peer, as I talked about in the video above. But if it tells me what to do and I consistently do it, then it feels like it is responsible for me. And that means that it has to protect me and correct me. And so if somebody else comes in, they have to protect me from that person who might take advantage of me. So what I do instead to help flip the leader-follower dynamic using positive reinforcement is if the dogs come up and nudge me, I don't do anything other than give them a counter order, tell them a desired behavior as a command. Sit, lay down, sit over here. So they just have to do something to change their state. As soon as they sit down, I pet them under their chin whenever possible, and I say, just sit. Try to avoid saying good dog or the dog's name or what a good sitter you are. Just say sit. Also be careful how you say it. Dogs hear inflection. There's a difference between sit and sit. So baby talk is more attractive to dogs, but a lot of people don't like to baby talk. So just talk and use the same tone of voice consistently when you're giving commands. It just makes it easier for dogs. Also, one thing I forgot to go over on camera with the guardians, but I'd like them to do is make a list of all the official command words. We have a tendency to give different versions of the command word. If you think about it, how do you call your dog to come? Dog's name, whistle, tap my thigh, come here boy, over here, come here. Now the dog has to listen to 7 or 10 different versions of the command word. If you speak English, they all make the same thing. If you're a dog, you don't speak English. It means I have to listen for 7 commands for come, and 7 commands for sit, and lay down, and eat my food, and all the rest of these things. So make a list of the command words and exclusively use the one command word, and if our spouse or a partner is saying, come here, and the word is come, we say vocabulary, and they say, come. And so that makes it easier for the dogs to identify, and again, we want to give them every advantage to succeed, and just make it easier for them is a great way to do that. So for petting with a purpose, the dogs are going to understand, from now on, when I tell the humans what to do, nothing happens. But if they tell me what to do and I do it, I get rewarded. I'm motivated to do that. After a while, the dog will start sitting in front of you to prepay for attention. Say, I like to scratch behind the ear. I'm sitting really pretty. Can you hook me up? Make sure you do that as much as you possibly can. I also have a couple of watchwords for this. I say paycheck if I suspect somebody's petting without a purpose. You come in the room, see somebody standing up, you say paycheck, it means, excuse me, I think you may have forgotten. That person should stop petting, disengage, light switch off, tell the dog to sit. When it sits, pet on its chin, say sit, and then you can tell the person, actually, I asked the dog to sit before he came in, you missed it. But if we argue about it, the dog sees us arguing, and we're on our own page, I can be on my own page too. So after a while, like I said, they'll prepay for attention. Now, if I see the dog come up towards me, a little fart, yes, fart behind the camera. Dog, not people. And if the dog comes and sits in front of me and I'm paying attention to watching a Husker game or something and I miss it, somebody in the room might say reward or recognize. And I would look at the dog and I would narrate whatever it's doing. Because I missed an opportunity to pet it. Remember, you have 3 seconds to pet or correct. So the dog comes and sits, it's saying, I'd like some attention, please, and I blew it, I missed it. Well, somebody says reward, they saw it happen, that's 1 second. They told me that's 2 seconds, I have now 1 second to start petting the dog. So I don't want to say what, I want to just look at the dog. If it's standing, I'm going to assume it came and pet it and say come. If it's sitting, pet it and say sit or crash or for lay down, whatever it is. The more that we pet with a purpose, the more the dogs will start offering those behaviors for us as a way of asking for attention. We call this manding or learning to mand. Now, the other side of this is something I call passive training, which is waiting for the dog to organically offer you a behavior without any influence from you whatsoever. Every time your dog comes to you, pet it and say come. Every time it sits, pet it and say sit. If it brings you a toy that looks like a donut, call it donut, and name all of your toys. So now we have come up with a vocabulary, and again, once again, we're rewarding dogs for desired actions and behaviors. For these 2 dogs, if we start petting them with a purpose and using passive training, now the dogs feel better about their attention because they're earning it, and we're classifying what things you can do to make the humans happy. And they're practicing the good behaviors, like sitting in front of people and to ask for attention. That's much better than lunging and barking at them at the door. So if the humans get in the habit of petting with purpose and passive training, every time they pet their dogs, it becomes a mini training session without even thinking about it. Now, when we have people come to the door, which is the guardian's primary concern, that's an excitable time, and that's why I talked about before, if the guardians practice coming home being calm and not bored, but boring, then the dogs kind of relax about it. So what I would do, a couple things. I would first of all have some neighbors that live in the neighborhood come to the door, and the guardian is a very nice host. I'm sure both of you are very nice hosts. But ask your neighbors to say, hey, we want to help the dog break the association. Because one of the things I noticed that guardians said is, should we take the dogs, should we say W-A-L-K? Because they were trying to get the dog for a leash. And evidently saying W-A-L-K gets them excited. If your dog gets really excited when you say a word that you have to spell it, you should say that word 1,000 times a day. It has nothing to do with going for a walk. Break the association. And then the dog, you say walk, and the dog doesn't respond to it. But in this case, we want when somebody comes to the door, that represents the excitement. Somebody's about to come in. I'm on duty. I got to protect the door. So what we want to do is have maybe on a day where we can keep the inside door open, have a neighbor, maybe a kid or somebody, put a chair out there. Have them come to the door, knock on the door, hit the doorbell, and then sit down, drink some of the nice lemonade that you have sitting there, eat a couple of nice cookies, and then walk away. The dog's going to sit there barking the whole time. Don't say a word. It would be better if you do this with one dog at a time, so they won't cascade off of each other. And after the dog stops barking or walks away, the person should get up and walk away. So now every time there's a knock at the door, it doesn't automatically represent the humans are coming in. So I'm practicing a different behavior. The second thing they can do is have a neighbor come over, or if we have guests coming over, well, first of all, we want to put the dog in a position to succeed. Tonight we have the family here. I keep on saying we. I always invite myself. But they're having some people come over. Well, these dogs are being pretty tired because of the activity we're doing here. They're both on the floor sleeping right now. This has been very draining for them. Well, after they recover, maybe take each one of them for a walk around the block. Doesn't have to be a long walk, and bring them back inside. And make sure you do that a half an hour before your first guest arrives. Now we've depleted a lot of energy. We put them in a position to succeed. Depleting energy is not going to make them better behaved, but not depleting their energy is certainly going to amplify their behavior. So it's an advantage we can give our dogs. So the next thing is what I would do is each guest that comes up, as long as the guest is not fearful of the dog, if the guest is fearful of the dog, don't have them do this. And I would suggest you have people come over to practice this. Neighbors are great because they're so close, but if other people you haven't seen for a while, that's great as well. Have them come over, put the dog on a leash, and only one dog at a time. Go outside and have them waiting in front of your garage so the dog comes out the door and doesn't see them right away, getting worked up. And then start walking, and as soon as you get to the driveway, the person should kind of start walking towards you and kind of want to walk like a triangular shape. So we're gradually getting closer, and we want to put the dog between the people. So the handler, the guardian's here, we're holding a leash, and the other person's here, and now we're walking down the sidewalk. After about 2 or 3 houses, if the person's calm and confident, let them gently take the leash. You want to do it so subtly the dog doesn't even realize what's going on. Then the guardian should continue walking about another 10 or 12 paces. And when the dog is not paying attention to them, is looking ahead, they should just quietly stop and just wait there. Let the guardian, the handler, walk ahead with the dog about a dozen paces. And if they keep on going, then turn around and walk back. Now, Parker did better than Duke. Duke kept on turning around and looking back. He wanted to go for his mom. He's a mama's boy. She takes good care of him. But eventually we got to the end of the block. I stopped. The neighbor at the end of the block has a nice shade tree. It's kind of a hot day. I sat down on one of the big boulders, and I asked him to sit. When dogs sit, that's a more subordinate position. So it took him a minute or so before he sat. Now, he still wouldn't take treats from me. That's a good indicator that he's too worked up. But sitting is a more relaxed position. I'm not pushing him. Certainly don't push or force. But if he sits down and hangs out with me, then he's practicing being around me. And the human who's doing this should not try to look at him, talk to him, and certainly not pet him. All we want the dog to do is be exposed to the human and not be under any pressure. Now, the outdoors does a number of things. There's other distractions, the sight, sounds, and smells being outside. Inside is more confined, which amplifies things for dogs. If they're outside, I have a lot more escape routes, is kind of how they look at it. Dogs also get over things by literally moving forward, and these dogs both enjoy going for walks. So if every time a guest comes over, they don't come in the house, first of all, I meet them outside, and they take me for a walk. I had these people wrong. I thought they were an invader, but now they're actually here to walk me. They're my personal dog walkers. I didn't know everybody on the planet job was to walk me on a little walk. But now you're soaring a little bit. You get your neighbors to walk your dogs for you. But the main thing is that they're distracted slightly by the stimulation of the environment. The open space makes them feel more comfortable, and they're doing something that helps them get over things, and they enjoy. That's like a quadruple of positivity. Just walk to the end of the block, cross the street, walk back, and then come back in. And then I would have, once they guard, and have them walk in with the dog. And then you would have the other dog in the office or bedroom, somewhere I can't see. Then take the leash off, put it, and the guardians would put it on the other dog. And as soon as they take the leash off the first dog, that person would go back outside, wait by the garage, and do the same thing. I know this seems labored, and this isn't going to be forever, This is you're going to have a certain number of people that you do this for. After a while, dogs get more and more relaxed because they're now practiced being around new people, and the people don't try to touch me, pet me, nothing bad happens. As a matter of fact, I get walks, good things happen. So I'd like you to try to put an emphasis on doing this like at least twice a week, but the more you do it, the faster you can, the faster you're going to rehabilitate them. However, we want to make sure it's positive. So if they're doing lawn work or construction, there's a weed eater, or there's kids screaming, maybe that's not the good time to practice. And we want to, again, give them every opportunity to succeed. But I'm betting if you do that two or more times a week, I'm betting within a month, you're noticing a lot less reactivity in concert with enforcing the rules, petting with a purpose, and passive training, and all the rest of that fun stuff. I'm pretty sure we're going to need to come back and do a follow-up session with these dogs and see where the guardians are at, fine-tune a couple loose things, and then come up with some techniques. Duke is eye contact dominant. I have a great exercise. We can teach him to look at people in the eye and not be reactive to that. Now, in the short term, another activity that we can do with Duke, we do it with both of them actually, is teaching them to catch. Parker is better at catch than Duke, and what I would do is have one of the guardians sit next to Duke and have Parker in the other room, grab a bunch of treats, it could be kibble too, to toss it. And don't toss, we have a tendency to go 1, 2, and then we throw in the third one, the dogs go 1, 2, where did it go? And then it hits them on the head. So just throw it in their first toss, and if it hits the dog's nose and hits the ground, the person sitting next to the dog should pick it up and put it in a basket or off to the side. The dog only gets it when it grabs it out of the sky. Now the dog's motivated, and if every time it lands in the dog's mouth, say something like catch or receiver or whatever you want to say that means to catch. The idea is once Duke can do this, then we have guests come over. If Duke's uncomfortable with them, we can give that guest like a dozen treats and have them play catch with Duke. The distance allows Duke to interact with them at a distance that he feels comfortable. The person is engaging with them. They're getting a little bit of eye contact, and he's getting positive reinforcers. So it's not a quadruple, but it's a triple of real good positive things. And it's helping him practice interacting in a positive way. I also went over, I think, feeding in the video above. The guardians need to make sure they're feeding the dogs ahead of time. I recommend calling the green spot and talk to Jessica or Whitney about, and just say, one of our dogs has cancer, he needs higher protein food, he's kind of being finicky, we're feeding Blue Buffalo. David said you have some suggestions, what would you suggest? They might tell you a really high protein food, they might give you a food supplement. Also, when it comes to food, the temperature is more important than the taste. So adding a little bit of warm water to the kibble, dry kibble, and swirling it around. I mean, I would actually do hot water, swirl it around and let it sit for about 15, 20 minutes before you feed them. Some of that water will go into the kibble. And just like us, the more hydration we get, the better, and same thing for dogs. And then I put another half a cup. I mean, I have a Dalmatian that has urinary stones. I probably put 4 or 5 pints of hot water in with his food. It takes him about 3 to 5 minutes to drink the water to get to the food to eat it. But I want him flushing his system with all these urinary stones. But it's hydrating is good for them as well. It slows down their eating, but the temperature, I think, is going to help. It's Parker and it might help him eat a little bit better. The guardians have been putting people food in their food to help them, motivate them, but then they're just eating the people food. They're not getting the nutrients they need, and probably getting fat and gristle. They're doing actually some turkey and some other stuff that they're adding to it. But if you just get a really high protein food, and you might also think about doing a raw diet or a real diet where you're, not that are not real, but they have diet plans where you actually are cooking a meal for it. It's warm, it's balanced, and it's higher protein. So there are other options, and Jess and Whitney at the Green Spot can go over some of those things for you. But I would like to see them getting a little bit more exercise. I think that change of environment is going to help them. And all the other conjunction with enforcing the rules and rewarding with desired actions and behaviors is going to have a big benefit. If the dogs are in your way, remember, don't walk around them, walk through them. They need to learn to get out of the human's way. If they're sitting or lying down, then you can walk around them. Play a little hard to get. Ask the dog to come to you before you do things with them. Don't go to them. Also, you might want to, I don't know what their sniffers are like, but scent games are very stimulating for dogs. And so I sat down to prep my books for my accountant for taxes. I'm pretty athletic. I sat down for 6 hours. I was wiped out when I got up. I was using a different muscle. For dogs, if you maybe have them wait in the other room and then hide 5 treats and say hunt, and they've got to use their nose to find it, that's very stimulating. It's enriching. It helps them feel better about themselves because they're the ones finding and earning that treat. And so we find ways to boost their confidence. And that's the last thing I want to touch on for this roadmap to success. Dogs that are most reactive are doing so out of insecurities. when we accomplish new skills, or we master new skills, or accomplish things like graduating college or getting a degree or a new job or whatever, we celebrate these milestones in our life because we usually have to put forth a lot of sacrifice. And those things, because we earn them ourselves, they boost our self-esteem and confidence. Same sort of thing happens for the dogs. I haven't asked the guardians this, but how many commands do they know?
One maybe.
No,
Sit.
they know a couple.
Sit and come.
Sit,
Okay.
lay, they know.
And we're going to practice a lot of sit and come and laying down with passive training. But on average in the United States, most dogs know 10 commands. So if they only know 3, they're pretty low, and it's hard to feel really great about yourself if you don't have any skills or commands. So one of the things the guardians might do now, one of our new staffers, Taylor, may be watching these dogs, and maybe Taylor can help you with this when you guys go out of town. But what I would recommend for you guys, because it'll help enrich your relationship with them a little bit, take turns each Sunday. Maybe you decide, go to YouTube, I'm going to teach them to roll over. And find a YouTube video, teaches you how to roll over, positive reinforcement only. And then once you teach each dog separately, and then all week long we practice the rollover that whole week until they're just rolling over like banshees. Next week, you take over. You find a video on YouTube. I'm going to make them cover their nose with my hand, or that's really harder, but bang you're dead maybe. And which actually is good to do with when you teach rollover, similar principles. And so now you practice that, and all week long you're bang you're dead, bang you're dead, bang you're dead. At the end, if each one of you does 4 of those, at the end of a month, that's 8 new skills. Now the dog knows 10 or 11 skills. That's going to really boost their self-esteem. That will help with their confidence and make them less reactive. But it will also help the humans interact with the dogs in more of a positive way. And it gives the humans a great way to redirect the dog's attention. The dog's barking, roll over. Barking, play dead. Barking, get my slippers. And so redirecting, just like having kids, is a great way to keep dogs from getting into trouble. Okay, we have a telemarketer we're calling, and we have to get to that because this is Nebraska, the home of telemarketers. But this is the roadmap to success for Parker and for Duke. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.